Good evening, folks. Just wanted to give you an update on what's happening with law and injustice in America, what's happening in Oregon, some interesting developments. Ammon Bundy was again on the stand today, and he's doing a phenomenal job telling the story of why they were there. Of course, none of this is being allowed out to the public. Hopefully the jurors listening, but unfortunately the jurors are sometimes falling asleep, and when people like Kelly Stewart in the courtroom mention that and talk about things going on in the courtroom, they are pulled aside by federal agents as they come out of the courtroom, escorted down shadowy hallways, and threatened and intimidated, saying that it's jury tampering. In fact, yesterday, these goons down there at the courthouse in Oregon took one of the people observing, Kelly Stewart, they took her to a side area, didn't let anybody else come in there, they detained her back there, and they made her delete a post she had made on Facebook that had mentioned how she'd seen these jurors and they were falling asleep in the courtroom and things like that. The audacity of these criminals is astounding. The audacity of these federal judges and these people that are running this courtroom, from the sheriff standing there guarding to the criminals sitting on the bench, the terrorists sitting on the bench. So let's talk a little bit. Let's sit out here in front of Freedom Stage a little bit. And let's talk about what's happening. Because what's happening isn't law. In fact, let's address that in particular. Now, there were some other good things happening, aside from the fact that people trying to observe a so-called public trial are being intimidated by these criminals. There were good witnesses. Michelle Fiore, it sounds like, did an amazing testimony in there, and the judge was trying to shut her down. Now, here's what's happening. The judge in this courtroom, and this is not that uncommon. You need to realize this isn't an isolated incident. This is your courts all over America. Now, understand, the judge is objecting to things before the prosecution. The judge is essentially the prosecution in this case. She works hand. And if the prosecution doesn't object, the judge will shut people down. Now, the judge was actually telling Assemblywoman Michelle Fiore, who's a sitting lawmaker, right, a sitting Assemblywoman, that she had to stop talking along certain lines because she's not qualified to interpret law. She's classified as a lawmaker. Now, I'm sorry if this is, if it's a little choppy. I should have checked my connection better out here. I figured right in the middle of town it would work. We're down here in Utah. But if it's giving you trouble, just come back after I post it and it'll be there. So let's address that, though. Aside from the fact that the judge is interrupting witnesses, the judge is preventing people from witnessing, the judge is actually becoming the prosecution, it goes much deeper than that. Let's examine just a little bit of the constitutional ramifications. And look at that, okay? So the Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person, this is the key, nor shall any person be subject to the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life and limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witness against himself, nor deprived of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, in general in America, what we just described in the Fifth Amendment is everything our courts are doing. Let's go to the Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy public trial. Now, they've been in jail for about 8 months, denied their liberty during that time with no prosecution, okay? Charged about 15 times for the same supposed offense, so not far more than double jeopardy. What these guys are facing from both Nevada and Oregon, and pretty much in every charge across the nation every day, they throw a bunch of charges at you hoping they'll net you with one of them. That is double jeopardy. So there's a violation of the Fifth Amendment twice so far. Now let's get to the Sixth Amendment. The accused shall enjoy a speedy trial. Nope, they've been in jail for about 8 months now, and they're still dragging this on. A public trial, note. Now, it's important to note that anybody who tries to mention in the courtroom the fact that the prosecution is leading witnesses, or that shenanigans are going on. Anybody these thugs, and that's what they are, they're not even uniformed marshals, they just have thugs running the court down there in Oregon. If you cross them in any way, they'll ban you from the courtroom. They intentionally used a small courtroom so that most of the people can't fit, and they have to be in these little side rooms where there's a video feed and they can barely see what's going on. And to top it all off, no cameras, no recordings, all this testimony, all this positive testimony, the whole story about why they're there, when they do manage to get it out without the judge objecting, is blocked because it's a secret court. So now we're up to 4 violations. How about witnesses? How about witnesses to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses and have the assistance of counsel for defense? Now, this doesn't mean requiring a barred attorney. Understand that. The assistance of counsel. So first of all, they've been denied most of their witnesses. Second of all, they're only allowed to have the representation that the judge approves of. So we're up to, of the 6th Amendment, that makes 4 violations, and the 5th Amendment at least 2. So we're about 6 violations of the Constitution just in 2 amendments. And I'm going to stop there because we could talk about the Constitution all night. Here's the thing. By extension, every officer and official who is complicit in this courtroom, every officer who ferries them back and forth, who holds them in jail during this kangaroo court, they're complicit too. That means your sheriffs, who consistently all over the nation are standing in these courtrooms guarding the kangaroo court and making sure the judge is not held to account, the prosecutor is not held to account, making sure they can commit any and all crimes they want. Now every one of those officers and officials and bailiffs, they're all complicit, guys. It's treason. They've declared war on the Constitution. Judge Anna Brown is a traitor and a terrorist, and so are the people that are in there complicit with her. Got to understand the law. Got to understand our rights. This is the definition of a kangaroo court. What our government is engaged in, from the FBI to the Oregon State Police to these judges, is to declare war on the Constitution and the people of America. It is the definition of treason. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, I can tell you one thing. We're not going to get redressed by playing the courts games. We need our appeal to heaven. We need some divine intervention here. We still need to speak up. We still need to get our message out. We still need to keep forging forward. We still need to occupy till he comes. We do the best we can. But folks, you're going to have to stand up. You need to understand. People still aren't grasping this. There's still a lot of people like, oh, well, they're going to work it out. The courts are going to work it out. They'll win the lawsuits. You don't understand. The courts are gone. The judges are traitors and criminals. The politicians are terrorists. And the ones who try to speak out and tell the truth, like Michelle Fiore in the courtroom, they're shut down by the judge because they're not qualified. The judge is not allowing witnesses because the jury doesn't need to hear that. The judge is now the prosecutor in the American courts. And the prosecutor official works with the judge to make sure you are convicted. Because that's the only purpose of courts in America, is to give them more power and to convict. What you can do is you have to stop pretending. We have to stop pretending new politicians or checking a box for a new president is going to fix this. You have to stop pretending that your pastors and your politicians and your candidates, when they will not speak about these issues, when they will not speak up for the innocent prisoners across this nation, from the Hammonds to Joe to Jeff Winehouse, Schaefer Cox, and the thousands of others, everyone locked in prison is now there illegally and has been denied their due process. We need to get on our knees before God, folks, but we need to stand boldly on our feet before these tyrants. We need to be peacemakers, to stand with principle and boldness, turn the world upside down with truth. Have a good night.